Fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, on the onset, let me be the first one to thank Huawei for having the ASEAN Secretariat in this Trust in Tech Summit 2021. In fact, the overall theme of the event, Rebuild, Reunite, Reset, is indeed very highly relevant to the ASEAN fraternity and the wider global community as we all are recovering from the pandemic. The theme is actually in line with the outcome of the recently concluded 26th UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow that sought to put into place measures to aggressively cut greenhouse gases emissions and slow the Earth's warming. Our efforts to address the present COVID-19 pandemic challenges and the regeneration of our economies definitely we all need to take into consideration of the future sustainability obligations and the commitments. For this, I believe the private sector-led discussion today is very encouraging because private sector plays the leading, facilitating role in promoting global economic recovery. And in this regard, I'd like to thank all the private sector representatives here for their active participation and engagement in advancing inclusive and sustainable economic recovery for our region and beyond. Now, against these backgrounds, allow me to complement what have been presented earlier and kind of share my thoughts specifically on the roles of digitalization and the collaboration that we can play in advancing economic recovery and this focus on sustainability. Allow me to start by sharing with you briefly the ASEAN economic outlook first. While it's projected to be the fourth largest economy by 2030, the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely disrupted our region's economic growth trajectory. In fact, this past year, ASEAN has seen our economy decline in 2019 by 3.3% as a result of disruptions of value chains and a drop in consumption and general business activities. Likewise, our ASEAN total trade value have also declined 5.5% in 2020. It stood at US 2.7 trillion compared to 2.8 trillion the year before. But I think despite this, we kind of are noticing that there's an increase in the demand for key new products, especially those that are needed for the production of medical supplies, such as rubber and bedding materials, and of course, technology. Now, uncertainties have also dampened the investor sentiments. As we saw our FDI inflowing in ASEAN, it fell by 24.6% in 2020 to about USD 137.3 billion. Though I must say that the region, ASEAN, still continues to be one of the most attractive investment destinations for FDI. In fact, we are absorbing close to about 13.7% of global FDI flows. As our economy slowly reopens, the ASEAN GDP is expected to recover this year, and we are expecting a rate of anywhere between 3 to 3.1%. And for next year, the economies are projecting that ASEAN is going to grow even stronger to about 5%. While I'm generally optimistic with the prospect of the economic recovery in our region, we definitely have to be very cautiously mindful of the various uncertainties that are disrupting our path to recovery. For all we know that the next crisis may be around the corner, and we all need to be fully prepared to face such unpredictable calamities. Ladies and gentlemen, as a region, ASEAN has responded very strongly to the crisis. We have adopted the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework. In short, we call it the ACRF. Now, this framework actually is helping us to cope with the issues of COVID-19, and it covers into 5 broad strategies. It covers the segments on health systems. Second, it covers into human security. Third, it covers into intra-ASEAN market and broader economic integration. And fourth, it covers digital transformation, will be interesting for all of you. And lastly, it also covers on sustainability. On the economic front, I must say that the ASEAN was very quick to commit to keep our markets open for trade and investments. In fact, the leaders in the ASEAN, they believe and they are deeply committed to open the economies for trade and investments. While many parts of the world, as you've seen, have been somewhat deglobalizing the last 2 to 3 years, creating barriers for cross-border flows. What we have seen this year and last year is that ASEAN member states have come together. In fact, in November 2020, they came right when we were in the deep of COVID. The ASEAN members leaders, together with their trade partners, came together to finalize and sign the RCEP FTA agreement. That is the largest free trade agreement in the world, where the 10 member countries of ASEAN, together with our key trading partners of China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, have come together to make this FTA. Now, this collective integration, this joint vision of the ASEAN member states to have better lives for their people and to remain connected and being relevant and globally competitive, this has really driven them to collectively, during this crisis, to move forward decisively with their partners to sign the RCEP agreement. Now, this is really a testimony of the importance of what ASEAN puts on global trade and investment links. Second, on the economic front, ASEAN is also working very hard to ensure unimpeded flows of trade and supply chain connectivity, particularly for essential goods, which are much needed during the pandemic period the last 2 years. In addition, the Hanoi Plan of Action on Strengthening ASEAN Economic Cooperation and Supply Chain Connectivity in response to the COVID pandemic, it had identified some key areas ensuring the smooth flow of goods during, we actually came out with a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, on the implementation of non-tariff measures, again signed by the ASEAN leaders, where we saw a very important list of 257 items consisting of mainly of medical goods, food, agri-products, to be excluded from any imposition on NTMs or non-tariff barriers by the ASEAN member states during the pandemic. And I understand that as we speak, more items, about close to 107 items, were added in 2021. A most recent ASEAN summit that actually took place last month, where the leaders met, they also welcomed the adoption of the ASEAN Travel Corridor Arrangement Framework. This is something I'm sure the business community is really looking forward to. As you know, business travel and the ability for our region to be able to travel efficiently is really on the top of the mind of every business out there. Now, to move forward, we definitely may need to consider using digital solutions or tools for smooth and efficient operationalization of the ATCAF within the region. The solution, of course, we are thinking should be reliable, cost-effective, easy to use, interoperable, and secure for travelers, for governments, for the airlines to be able to efficiently manage the flows, and for the airports to allow the movement of people in a very efficient way. And in this regard, we are of the view that the ASEAN will all have to strengthen our partnership with the leading industry organizations such as AETA. And in particular, we really believe that we are of the view that the ASEAN Travel Corridor, the next level, we will have to continue engaging AETA and try to find ways where we can incorporate some of their solutions in supporting our own domestic needs and requirements. Hopefully, this is going to pave the way for the region to be able to connect with one another and for business travel to come back again as we imagine. Obviously, it's not back to where it was prior to 2019, but in a way that we can start operating sufficiently well. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, digitalization and collaboration, it can and will play a very important role in our drive to economic recovery. Now, to start with, digital transformation in ASEAN, it has progressed at a remarkable pace over the past decade. It's estimated now there is 463 million internet users in the region, making ASEAN region the fastest growing internet market in the world, whilst automation, artificial intelligence adoption, they all are gaining very strong traction in the region. In fact, after crossing a US 100 billion mark in 2020, ASEAN's internet economy is expected to reach US 300 billion by 2025. The COVID-19 pandemic definitely has been an accelerator for digital transformation in ASEAN. It definitely is one of those things that is positively come out of the COVID. It's changed the way we live, the way we work, the way we interact with each other. and digital technologies have definitely kept ASEAN as a vibrant economic community during the pandemic, and it will permeate all aspects of our lives in the post-pandemic reality that we are creating forward. And over the past few years, what we have seen has been a number of digitalization-related initiatives across the three pillars of the ASEAN community. A new initiative was recently launched to again further strengthen the region's strides towards digitalization. At their summit again in October, the ASEAN leaders, interestingly this year, they also issued a statement on advancing digital transformation in ASEAN, which again calls for the strengthening of digital integration and transformation in the region to enhance ASEAN's competitiveness by turning the current pandemic into an opportunity through digital transformation. The leaders also adopted the consolidated strategy for Fourth Industrial Revolution for ASEAN. And this strategy is really more to guide the ASEAN community to progress towards digital transformation. It's our journey and it's our focus in the area of 4IR. The same summit that took place also saw the ASEAN leaders welcome the endorsement of the Bandar Sri Begawan Roadmap. This roadmap, we call it the BSBR. It is really an ASEAN digital transformation agenda to accelerate ASEAN's economic recovery and digital economic integration. In addition to highlighting all of the new and existing initiatives, it's really crucial in supporting ASEAN's ongoing digital integration through a phased prioritization approach from 2022 to 2025. Now, this roadmap is something I want all of you to pay attention to, because for the very first time in this roadmap, we have also indicated their leaders have come together to commit to a commencement of a negotiation of an ASEAN-wide digital economic framework agreement and the start of negotiation before 2025. I believe that while the deadline is before 2025, that negotiation is probably going to start way before that. So watch the space. Now, these initiatives definitely are going to complement ASEAN's ongoing digitalization initiatives, such as the ASEAN Digital Master Plan 2025, the ASEAN Digital Integration Framework Action Plan 2025, the Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity 2025. I know they are mouthful, but all of these are very important initiatives that there's been committed by each of the ASEAN member states, and they are all targeted towards assisting the region towards an inclusive, sustainable recovery, but also to help the region achieve its vision to transform itself into a leading digital community in the coming years. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to the aforementioned digitalization initiatives, ASEAN, in furthering shaping our digital future, we are now riding the momentum of the high-performance computing, HPC. We are devising a plan to define our own HPC capacities with a vision to establish a shared HPC infrastructure in ASEAN. Now, hopefully Huawei can see that this is a vision, is materialized. We want to build a regional HPC capacities here. And this is where we are hoping that one day Huawei will be able to concentrate and also build a center of excellence in our part of the world, in ASEAN, in order to ensure that we do not stay behind from the other parts of the world. Now, against the backdrop of the increasing digitalization, for us, the HPC is really a very necessary tool to build the foundation for scientific, for industrial, for societal advancements, which will in return translate that into economic growth and the betterment of our people. Hence, a shared HPC infrastructure model would rely on collaboration between the national, regional supercomputers, as well as private entities like yourselves coming together, opening doorways to global HPC resources and talent and more collaborations. In fact, last year, the HPC market generated revenues of 23.98 billion, of which the server market generated almost more than half, 11.85 billion. HPC really spurs the adoption of digital innovation across all industries, fostering economic growth and competitiveness. From big data analytics to genomics, sophisticated HPC is poised to address the challenges through the high speed and the high bandwidth fiber optics. I think in this era where we are challenged with a global pandemic, the economic fallout that's from it, the climate change complexities, we believe HPC is really going to be a platform to advance towards economic recovery and sustainability solutions. Now, applying the power of supercomputing combined with artificial intelligence and use of big data will definitely provide us unprecedented opportunities for recovering. As such, cross-regional collaborative effort hopefully will pave the way for ASEAN to digitally transform with HPC. Ladies and gentlemen, on climate change and environment, I would like to recall that at the COP26, ASEAN issued a joint statement. The leaders issued a joint statement on climate change, which kind of underlined ASEAN's commitment to the Paris Agreement and to the call to all parties to enhance the ambition of their national determined contributions to advance a low-carbon and climate-resilient development. Acknowledging the critical role of financing to support low-carbon recovery, ASEAN has also adopted the ASEAN Taxonomy on Sustainable Finance, which was developed to provide common standards for ASEAN members. It also states on sustainable finance. It focuses on what sustainable finance should be. In fact, partnerships and collaborations with private sector, I feel, is another important area in driving inclusive and sustainable recovery in the region and beyond. Now, this is key in fostering innovation to stimulate science-driven solutions to address the current pandemic, including through better scientific understanding of the virus, the development of vaccines, diagnostics and treatments, and helping to develop systematic solutions to advance sustainable technologies. In that view in mind, I really want to emphasize the very important importance of multi-stakeholder partnership and collaboration once again. One that cuts across the sectors and pillars of ASEAN cooperation involving the myriad of diverse stakeholders. Indeed, for us, ASEAN cannot work alone in this technologically fast-changing environment. We will need to pursue a very active engagement with our business partners, with the civil society, especially those representing even marginalized informal society, and of course, external partners, now to ensure we all can come together, work together towards an economic recovery that's inclusive and sustainable one. Please allow me to close by emphasizing that there's no better time for us to reset, to reunite, and to rebuild. Whilst the pandemic has truly brought about unprecedented challenges to our societies, it has also given us an opportunity to reflect, to innovate, to reimagine how we can chart our future and to build a better tomorrow for our children. We should seize this opportunity to make our societal and economic recovery truly transformative by investing in solutions to the crisis that address social, environmental, and of course economic transitions needed by our society and the planet. These endeavors will undoubtedly, it will require support from all stakeholders. Once again, I'd like to thank Huawei for giving me this opportunity to address all of you.